calls Kathryn Ruby.
The testimony shall give this court and jury, and the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Now, all else.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind, could you just introduce yourself to the members of the jury, and if you could please spell your first and your last name.
My name is Kathy Ruby. Kathryn, I guess, Ruby, Kathryn. Last name is Ruby, R-U-B-Y. I work for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. Pardon me. Records Production Division Manager.
Ms. Ruby, how long have you been with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office?
30 years.
And how long have you been doing the work that you just described, that is, a keeper of the records?
16.
What were you doing prior to the work that you do now as a keeper of the records?
For 14 years, I was involved in the 911 or Communications Division, as we call it, at the Sheriff's Office.
Could you describe for us just briefly what your responsibilities are as a keeper of the records?
In the state of Florida, they require us to have an RMLO, which is a Records Management Liaison Officer, to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. I hold that title. I'm also in charge of a specialized unit that any records production or request for records comes into my office. My staff reviews that, and we disseminate those records. I'm also in charge of doing all the records retention by Florida law. And any time that there's a high-profile case or any kind of media request or whatever, my unit handles all of that.
You mentioned that that you disseminate certain records. Where are those records disseminated to?
I disseminate records to whoever requested it. Sometimes it's a hard copy, sometimes it's an electronic copy. Anybody that asks for records, we have to review those to make sure that they are releasable by law. We will redact whatever is in that record that should be redacted out by law. For example, for today, I brought records with me. Sometimes they're sent electronically. Sometimes they're just picked up. It just all depends.
What kind of records are maintained by the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office?
Well, in the course of business, we have control of from police reports, accident reports, internal administrative records, memos, whatever scheduling. It really varies, but the majority are any of the records that are generated by law enforcement when they write a police report.
You mentioned one of those documents as an arrest report. Is that also known as an offense report?
We have an offense report. An offense report doesn't necessarily mean that there's an arrest connected to it. It is if there was a crime involved. They may not have caught the person, or they may have caught the person. If they catch it, then it's supplemented to that report, and a booking record is then also generated from that.
So is an offense report included among the reports that are regularly maintained by the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you also mentioned a vehicle report. Does the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office maintain a document that's known as a Florida traffic crash report?
Yes, sir, we do.
And when are those, it sounds obvious when they're filled out, but can you tell us the circumstances under which those types of reports are generated?
Well, what we maintain are two separate kinds. There's what they call a short form. The short form is used when there's a very little damage, no injury. And then the next one that they use is called a long form. And the long form is if there's extensive damage and or there are injuries. If there is a death involved, the long form is also used, but it's then associated to another case number.
Now, once those reports are generated, do you send an electronic version of that report elsewhere?
That's correct, we do. It comes through our system to the Central Records Department, who review it. No, we're not law enforcement, so we review it for whatever information is in there, so to speak. To make sure there's not like crazy handwriting on it or something. And then we electronically send it to the to the Division of Motor Vehicles, which is located in Tallahassee.
And is the same done for an offense report? Not necessarily to the Division of Motor Vehicles, but is the offense report also then sent electronically somewhere?
Yes, the offense report is stored within our own systems that are online or in a computer. It's not a hard copy anymore, if you will.
The vehicle crash report, if there are aspects of that report that are not filled out either completely or they're filled out incorrectly, what happens after you've sent them electronically to Tallahassee?
When we send it to Tallahassee, they will review it, and then if there's anything that's in error or they feel needed to be filled in, I am not a police officer, so I don't know when a box does apply, but if there's some kind of an error or an empty box that they think is associated to it, they'll send it back to us for corrections.
Now, both of these documents, both the traffic crash report as well as those are two documents maintained in the ordinary course of the business of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
And those documents, when they're generated, are they generated contemporaneously with the event that they're describing or memorializing?
Yes, yes.
Now, just very briefly with respect to the offense report, there are certain sections in the first part of that report that are informational in nature. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
For instance, there's an entry for a signal code, there's an entry for the zone, the time of the incident, where it took place, and if there's an arrest made, the name of the individual, contact information for that individual, address for that individual. Is that correct?
Sir.
And in the Florida traffic report, similarly, are there places to list vehicle information, owner information of the vehicle, which includes contact information, as well as the particulars of where it took place, when it took place, and the like?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there's a whole bunch of boxes and sections for traffic and weather conditions at the time the incident took place. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in particular today, were you asked to come to court, in particular to bring with you two documents as well as to give some testimony with respect to those documents?
Yes, sir.
And those documents have to do with an individual in part by the name of Jarrell Pierre.
I know that one of them does the accident report. I just retrieved the documents. I didn't review it, but there are names that are on it, yes.
Okay. And you have both of those items in your possession, is that correct?
I do, sir.
And are they both certified documents?
Yes, sir, they are.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
The Florida traffic crash report that you brought with you is a certified copy, and would you agree with me that and if you need to look at it again, I can bring it back up to you, but the incident date of that particular incident is January 4th of 2013?
To say that, I'd have to look at it. I don't remember the date. January 4th, 2013.
And the other document, the offense report, what date is that associated with?
November 8th, 2012.
And the offense report, does that have some kind of identifying number connected to it?
Yes, sir, it's a case number.
And what's the case number?
The case number is 12-143-282.
And does the traffic crash report have a number associated with it?
Yes, there are 2 numbers associated to the traffic report, traffic crash report.
And what are those 2 numbers?
The first one is our agency case number, and that's 13-022215.
And what's the second number associated with this report?
The second one is an assigned unique number to this accident from HSMV crash report number is what they call it.
And what's the number there? Is it legible enough?
It is, yes. It's 813-564-80.
And in the copy of the report that you brought with us, that's 7 pages?
Of the accident report, yes, sir.
Yes. And the offense report is how many pages?
It's 3 pages of the offense report, but there's a 4th page because there is an exemption by Florida law for any kind of narcotics agent's name, and it comes out, and we illustrate that exemption with this 4th piece of paper.
Okay. And so on the offense report, that individual's name has been redacted or excised from the report, is that
That's correct, yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd offer the offense report as well as the Florida traffic crash report as the next 2 numbered exhibits.
Is there an objection? I'm sorry? We would object. See you at sidebar.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd offer the 7-page Florida traffic crash report under agency number 13-022215 as the next numbered exhibit.
Subject to any appropriate redaction that will be received.
Exhibit 356.
Directing your attention, Ms. Ruby, to page 6 of the Florida traffic crash report, and specifically with respect to the line that I've drawn an arrow to the left of. Do you see the entry on that line?
I do, sir.
And you see the entry that reads Jarrell B/M 7-1789.
Yes, sir.
And you see to the right of that the name Pierre.
Yes, sir.
And then to the right of that, what appears to be a phone number.
Yes, sir.
Could you read that phone number off, please?
404-861-3292.
Showing you what has been previously marked as, well, page 8 of exhibit number 251.
I'm going to object to this. Show that on the screen for a moment.
Sustained.
Thank you, Ms. Ruby.
We have no questions.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Washington. you step, please. Commonwealth.
Commonwealth calls Anthony Vasali.
So you're going to start right here, you're going to raise your right hand and face this way.
You solemnly swear the testimony you shall give this court and jury, the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Kindly follow the officer.
Right ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and spell your last name, please?
Sure, my name is Anthony Vasali, V like in Victor, I-S-A-L-L-I.
Sir, how are you employed?
I'm a senior inspector with the United States Marshal Service.
As a senior inspector of the United States Marshal Service, sir, how long have you had that title?
I've been a senior inspector since 2003.
How many years total have you been with the United States Marshal Service?
27, it'll be 27 years in June.
Can you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and the court during that 27 years what particular areas or units you've been assigned to within the United States Marshal
No,
Service?
I started off in 1990 as Deputy United States Marshal, doing different tasks, eventually transferred to the Boston field office. 1994, I started working primarily in investigations and fugitive investigations. Around 1999, I started running a fugitive task force, eventually became a supervisor of the task force. In 2003, I transferred into the what they call the Technical Operations Group and became a senior inspector.
What does the Technical Operations Group within the United States Marshal Service do, sir?
Well, we specialize in various forms of communications and how they be used in a law enforcement purpose for investigations.
And Senior Inspector Vasali, can you describe for us what types of training and experience you have relative to cellular telephone technology in that 27-plus year career?
Well, as part of the Technical Operations Group, they've put me through a lot of training and different knowledge of cellular structures, things like that, the different cellular protocols, basically cellular mapping, analysis of cell phone records, really extended period of time of all different natures of what we do in law enforcement as far as utilization of exploiting communications for investigative measures.
And those experiences that you've described, the training and experience, Senior Inspector Vasali, does that include also working closely with the various carriers who provide cell phones, like Verizon, AT&T, and those types?
Correct.
And do those communications include communications with representatives, engineers, and other specialized technicians within those providers?
That's correct.
How much of your time is spent, sir, analyzing cellular telephone data?
I do it on a daily basis every day.
Approximately how many cellular telephones have you analyzed the data for and actually plotted what's called cell towers?
I couldn't put a number on that. It's well in the thousands,
Thousands?
if not more. Well in the thousands. I do it every day as part of my job.
And backing up a little bit, sir, as far as cellular telephone technology, in the course of your career, have you had the opportunity to give what's oftentimes referred to as expert or opinion testimony in the area of cell tower plotting and cellular telephone technology?
I've testified in this court numerous occasions to that effect, yes, sir.
And you also assist federal agencies as well and in federal court?
I haven't testified in this aspect in federal court on that matter, no, sir.
Sir, I'm calling your attention now to how cellular telephones work, generally speaking, and in a way that's, keeping in mind this jury's already heard from one other expert from AT&T. Can you describe generally how cellular telephones work?
No, it's kind of a complex thing, but I mean, basically, when a cell phone's on, it's emitting a signal, through radio frequency, and basically searching for the closest strongest cell tower to communicate with, and then from the cell tower, it's registering. So, in the cell tower is sending a signal through what they call a base station controller back to the network through a switch, so that basically when a call comes in or out or a text message, the network knows where your phone is and how to process a call.
And in particular to this case, Inspector Vasali, how does one, in your position, doing what you've described thousands of times for the United States Marshal Service, how does one plot cell towers, or a person's using a handset that hits off of a cell tower? How does that work?
Well, we attain, through the legal process, we would attain, a copy of either, cell records, call records, whatnot, from the various different carriers, and they're all kept in different formats and in different manners. Some carriers retain it in a different manner than others, and some don't, but we obtain it from the actual cell carrier through, legal process, and we use different sorts of mapping software. There's a lot of different types of mapping software we'd use to assist us in plotting the locations and looking at azimuths and things like that, such to try and draw, a conclusion in the general area where a cell phone would be.
And have you had the opportunity, sir, to interpret cellular telephone data, meaning, as you hinted just now, that different carriers may describe or report the data in different ways? Are you familiar with how that's done by the various carriers?
Absolutely. I mean, some carriers don't, they collect this as a course of business now. So it's all the way they store it at their headquarters as a course of business. And some carriers will, actually store just call records, but not, they'll store the text messages, but not the location of the text messages. Some store the location of the text messages. Some store data, some do not. It just depends on the carrier. And generally with the phone calls, it would be, they don't store, if your phone is just working, will hit different towers if you're moving and things like that. But generally, as a course of business, they'd store the first tower you started your call on and the last tower you ended your call on. And sometimes what they call the azimuth, or the direction of it, the center beam. Some with the text messages will only store, obviously your text message is just a blip coming to you, so it would only be like the first tower. And again, some store data every 60, take a reading every 60 minutes. It's just dependent on the carrier.
And sir, have you become familiar with the various differences between the carriers? Have you been able to interpret data, for instance, from AT&T as opposed to Sprint or Verizon?
Correct, yes.
And at times in the course of your extensive career mapping cellular towers and interpreting cellular telephone data, in situations where there was something that you did not know from your own experience, have you talked to engineers and experts at the various cellular companies?
Yes, I do it quite a bit, just to make sure we have everything that we need and all the right information.
And have you in fact toured and visited cell carriers as well?
Yes, I've been to a few of them, not all of them, but I've been to a few of them, yes, sir.
What about, again, as a federal agent for the federal government, updates in technology? Do you keep abreast of updates in technology, including the ability to interpret data from cellular telephones?
Yeah, well, as part of our unit, we're supplied with, all the latest updates on the cell towers and things like that, and different protocols, and we have a kind of a stream going along with all these carriers, a communications thing, so we know when they're starting to do something different. They'll alert us, something they'll change, if they're changing numbering systems, or because they all number stuff differently, or they change the way that they're maintaining the records. We get general updates on that stuff, and periodic training on internally on how that would work.
And Inspector Vasali, generally speaking, does part of your role involve tracking wanted fugitives and suspects?
It does.
And does that again include, as you've described, historical information of cell tower locations and the like?
Yes, that's correct.
Inspector Vasali, I'm going to call your attention now to the work you performed on this investigation in particular. Starting back in 2013, is it fair to state that the Boston Police Department Homicide Unit provided you with various cellular telephone records, including records purportedly belonging to the defendant, Aaron Hernandez?
That's correct.
And with that data, Inspector Vasali, were you able to do what you've discussed, being able to plot cell site locations that handset purportedly belonging to Aaron Hernandez and other relevant persons hit off of in a course of certain days?
I did. In conjunction with your office, I did, yes.
And calling your attention now to the different softwares that you use or one can use to plot cellular data points. Describe some of the software, if you would.
Well, I mean, there's all different sorts of programs. I mean, the bottom line is cell towers, you'll see sometimes they provide an address and stuff. Cell towers generally aren't, you can't really draw an address on all of them, because what happens is cell towers emit latitudes and longitudes, and so that's, the way we do it. We get the latitudes and longitudes from the actual cell carriers and import them into different mapping programs, be it a Microsoft Map Point or a Google Maps or a Google Earth or something like that, or even some other products. They would, there's new products that come out with this. Another product called Gladiator that's on the marketplace. We'd use it is in conjunction with our job to, map all these cell towers and azimuths and in conjunction with things we know that are going on, activities that are going on within these areas.
And Inspector Vassallo, is it fair to state that you have used various softwares relative to this investigation to plot the relevant cell towers, and they've all led to the same result? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm calling your attention now, sir, to a particular phone number that you looked at, a 562 number. Was that one of the numbers that was provided to you, sir?
That's correct.
Is it fair to state, sir, that all of the AT&T records were provided to you, and you were able to obtain that data and plot cell tower locations?
I was.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Inspector Vassallo, I'm showing you a CD. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And does this CT contain the product of the work you performed on this case relative to the plotting of cell tower locations as to certain cellular telephone numbers, sir?
That's correct. In conjunction with your office, that was prepared, yes, sir.
Is it fair to state that you used various software to plot the locations, but you ultimately used a Google mapping software for what's on this CD?
That's correct.
And is it fair to state that this CD contains a PowerPoint mapping the relevant tower locations that you were able to plot based upon your analysis of the data?
That's correct.
Your Honor, I'd offer the CD with the PowerPoint to the next number.
Objection.
Objection.
See you inside, Martin. As the next lettered item for identification. Christine, I'm not sure that may be triple X.
I have it as triple A. I don't know.
4A.
I don't know.
All right, 4A. Thank you.
And I'd also ask that the three paper versions also be marked for identification. It's chalks as well.
All right, we'll receive them as 4A, 1, 2, and 3.
For the record, Inspector Vassallo, I've placed 4A into the computer. And we'll start, sir, with what's labeled as the PowerPoint for 562-481-8106. And before we start that, Agent Vassallo, I'm going to place Exhibit 249, letter B, that's been entered in evidence.
Objection.
No, overruled.
That number there, listed as 562-481-8106. Have you seen this document, sir, the subscriber page for that?
I have.
And that was also something that was submitted to you for your analysis?
That's correct.
And the listed liable party of the subscriber for that phone number is who, sir?
Aaron Hernandez.
And the date that this phone number is at least activated or listed as activated on this document is what, sir?
June 28, 2012 through August 27, 2012.
And what we see on this CD, sir, that's been marked as Exhibit 4As, that includes your cell tower mapping of that cellular device from July 15, 2012 to July 20, 2012. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The first few pages here, sir, can you describe what's depicted here?
This is just depicts the records that came from AT&T Wireless.
And is this basically a compilation of the records where the voice, data, and text are all combined chronologically?
Objection, maybe? Sustained in that form.
Describe what this document is that's attached to the PowerPoint.
It's, well, normally when you get the records from AT&T Wireless, they'll list voice, they'll have data in the middle, and they'll have text messages on the bottom. This just puts them all into a chronological order. And again, on the records, we'd see originating number, terminating number, the times, the description of the call. It also has the address of the cell tower, has the LAC and the cell ID over here, the LAC and the cell ID, and then over here the latitude and longitude. And if they have it, if they maintained it, or it's part of the records, they'd give the azimuth at the end.
I'm going to have you describe an azimuth in just a second, sir.
Sure.
And what we see here, is this also what you previously described, a summary?
Yes, that's correct.
That includes voice, text, and data chronologically?
Correct.
I'm calling your attention now to the next screen of the PowerPoint 4As. Can you describe what we see here, sir?
Okay, that would just be, again, chronologically, the voice, text, and data calls on this phone from 9:04 p.m. to 11:13 p.m.
And the first entry on this, sir, labeled as July 15, 2012, 9:04 p.m., voice phone call. Can you tell us about how the cell tower location is plotted and where it's located?
The one that you just put the mark over, or the one below it?
The Manchester sand and gravel, sir.
Okay, the Manchester Sand and Gravel won't be on this. It's not a picture here, but that'll be on the next slide. This slide right here is going to be this one right here, Counselor. It's going to be actually equate to cell tower 50021, and the LAC would be 5993, and the azimuth one would be 45 degrees.
Now, this would be a good time, Inspector Verselli, tell us now what the azimuth means and what the relevance of it is.
It's kind of, it's a center beam when they set up the cellular networks. There would be the place where the cell beam from the channel is strongest. Generally, and a lot of companies are all different. There's not a perfect thing because cellular companies set their towers up for capacity and so people can gain and make calls, but they're generally divided in a 360-degree circle. They're generally 3 channels or 3 cell sites, and generally on those, the center beam usually, and again, this is not exact, but generally 160 degrees on either side would be the way the beam would come out.
And when you say beam, does that have any relevance towards where the handset is that is presumably hitting off of that tower?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, the phone wants to use the cleanest, strongest channel to where it is, and obviously it would equate to, if the beam is the strongest there, it's going to, it's going to register and eventually be processed and call through that sector of the cell tower.
Mr. Verselli, we've talked now, you indicated that what we see on the screen is the map for this entry right here, 715, that's in light blue. Is that correct? That's
correct.
And you'll see now a series of light blue entries on the screen that all correspond with the 13th minute of the hour. Can you describe what that is, sir?
That's like a packet paging gateway. It seems, again, all these companies keep their records in a different manner, but what's happening here is AT&T is making a record of, at some point a data session was opened, and the the actual, network is trying to communicate through that actual tower, and for some reason they're recording it every hour on the hour. Doesn't necessarily mean the phone is there. As a matter of fact, as you see in these records, it won't be there. The phone moves, but it keeps being paged from the same tower.
So the remainder of the mapping that you did for this cellular device on the date in question, did you not include the mapping of those gateway packages that you've described happening on the 13th minute of every hour?
And that's correct. This is the only map, I believe, that actually shows it.
Calling your attention to the next slide, and that was the tower that I asked you about. We have here a voice call, 9:04 p.m., 7:15, 2012. Can you indicate what tower that phone call hit off?
Yeah, that tower is again, it's right here. Tower is 10809. The LAC is 5993. And as you can see, AT&T, you're into this one, excuse me. It's tower 10806, same LAC. And what AT&T does is, the course of their business is they actually put the latitude and longitude of the tower on the cell records. And if they have an azimuth, in this case they do, it would be right down there.
Is the azimuth the 23?
That's correct.
And what does that tell you?
It just tells you the center beam on this would be roughly, with 0 being due north and 90 degrees being straight east. The center beam, the way it's set up would be 23 degrees, which would be, I don't know if I can make a mark here. No, I can. Okay, so 23 degrees would be straight up. So, the tower would go generally, and again, it's not a perfect world in cellular engineering. There's crossover and stuff like that for many different reasons, but 60 degrees on either side, is the way, it would equate, in looking at their records.
And calling your attention now to what we see next, we see a data point at 9:05. What is the data point at 9:05?
905, it's a different tower ID number, cell ID number. It's 10809 with the same LAC. It's basically the same tower. It's on the same tower. It's just a different sector and channel number, and it's the same azimuth and everything.
And what we see here, sir, just to summarize, on 7/15/2012 from 9:04 to 10:25, is this phone hitting off of the same tower?
It is. That's correct.
And what is the tower location? Is that what we see on the screen here?
That is right there on the screen.
Is it fair to state that the things that are hitting off of the tower, or the entries that are hitting off of the tower, include voice, data, and text?
That's correct.
That's sustained, don't lead.
What does this include, sir, during that time?
Okay, so from 9:04 p.m. to 10:25 on this slide, we see different forms of communication. We see some voice communication, we see some data communication, and we also see a text message. And they're all, on the same tower, same location. Again, different cell ID numbers, but same location, same azimuth.
Calling your attention now to the next slide, sir. What do we see here?
That's the exact same tower, it's just a different depiction of it. This is in more of a Google Map version.
And does this tower appear to be within the town of Manchester, Connecticut?
That's correct.
Sustained.
Where is this tower located, sir?
The tower is located. It gives you the actual address. Again, we wouldn't rely on the address, but we'd rely more on the latitude and longitude plotting it, but it is in Manchester, Connecticut.
And from what you can tell, sir, again, with your training and experience, do you have an opinion as to whether or not that handset was located within Manchester, Connecticut for the time frame we just talked about?
That's correct.
And that's from 9:04 p.m. to 10:25?
Correct.
Calling your attention now, sir, to the next slide of the chalk that's been marked 4A's. Can you tell us what's depicted on this slide, sir?
Okay, so in the course of business, AT&T made a mark in their network and recorded a data usage, and at that point, it was using a different tower. This tower is actually off the Massachusetts Turnpike in Charlton. The tower number is 31449. The LAC is 6984, and it actually gives an azimuth of 270 degrees. There's the latitude right there, which corresponds with the information actually from AT&T. And 270, it would be 270 degrees. So, 270 degrees would be more west, but again, 60 degrees more on either side that way.
So when you draw what you just drew, Inspector Versalli, is that the area in which the azimuth is pointing, receiving that signal?
That's correct.
And you've kind of drawn,
Yeah, it would extend much farther out. The map doesn't go that farther out, obviously, depending on the locations of the next towers, but it would go much farther out than that. I'm just giving a general configuration showing.
and do you have an opinion as to whether or not the handset, the actual cellular device, is hitting off of this tower at 11:25 p.m.?
It is.
And where is this tower located, sir?
It's just off the Mass Pike in Charlton.
Call your attention now to the next entry, this being what's described as at July 15th, 2012, 11:25 p.m. at data usage. Is that the same thing we just saw, sir?
That's the same way you saw it. It's just zoomed out to give a better perspective of the location of the tower.
And can you tell us on this map where Connecticut is in relation to this?
Connecticut would be down here on, keep going south on 84, down this way, and it's not far out of Sturbridge, right? The line is literally not much farther than where I made that mark.
Call your attention now, sir, to the next entry, July 15th, 2012, 11:35 p.m. What is reflected in this data?
Okay, what happens here is there's a voice call. Again, the number we're reviewing the records for, 562-481-8106, is making a call to 860-502-2593. The total time of the call is 1 minute and 6 seconds. And as you can see, the call starts on this tower right here. Starts on tower 31557. The LAC would be 6985. And the call terminates. Remember I talked about before how they maintain beginning and ending on a call. It terminates on this tower right here, which would be 9692. Same LAC, and again, they give you the different latitudes and longitudes and the azimuth on the end. Only the terminating tower, in this case, is showing an azimuth.
Now, sir, the fact that a call begins on one tower and ends on another tower, do you have an opinion as to what that's consistent with?
Well, depending on the distance, it means the phone, the handset's being moving. Now, again, when you start a call, the network knows to pass the phone. The switch knows to pass the phone from tower to tower to tower to tower. But in the course of business, they would only record, back at 18 to headquarters, or basically any cell carrier would only record the beginning and ending cell site that you were making that call on.
Inspector Vassalli, starting with the tower that the phone call that we're talking about now at July 15, 2012 starts on, where is the tower located that the call starts on, sir?
It's in South Burough, Massachusetts, right off the Massachusetts Turnpike. And again, the latitude and longitude up here correspond to where it's mapped out on this picture.
Particular hit off of the tower does not include an azimuth, is that correct?
That's correct, it does not.
Calling your attention now to the second tower that hits at the termination of that call, as you've described. Where is that located?
That's right here again. I went over the tower number before, but that's right here. It's in Framingham, Massachusetts, not far off the Mass Turnpike, and where it intersects with Route 9.
This particular slide that we have next, does this show both the start and end of that phone call as far as the towers that it hits?
That's correct. That's correct. It has the originating and the terminating tower, and it actually has the azimuth of 150 degrees on this tower over here.
And is this on the Massachusetts Turnpike, sir?
That's correct.
And the direction from the first tower that you have in red to the green tower would be in what direction, sir?
It will be going west to east.
Towards what city?
Towards, it's obviously it's terminating somewhere in Framingham, but as we go on, we'll see.
Calling your attention now to the next slide that has at least at first an entry in blue. Describe what that is again.
Okay, so the blue entry again, that's that paging gateway that we saw in Connecticut. It seems that, and again, all the companies don't do this, but AT&T does that. For some reason, a data session was initiated some time ago, and every hour on the hour it's trying to initiate and look for initiate a signal handset, and for some reason, as a course of business, they're recording that in their network. But the second one is actually where, it's what they call a support node switch. It's actually where the IP address is being marked out of, and again, it's the location, we can go over it, is 20016, and the LAC on it is 691. There's the latitude and longitude, and the azimuth on it is 270 degrees.
And when you plot that on the map that's on the screen here, sir, can you also show the azimuth of which way that's pointing?
Well, 270 again, like we said before, would be west, and I can point out, that the center beam would be dead west, and then we'd talk about 60 degrees, basically on, either side, 60 degrees on either side. So it's that, in that direction. Again, this is just a this is a data issue. They record those generally at different varying times, but this was recorded in the 60-minute mark.
Data usage, again, sir, can you describe for the jurors what that means? Data usage, what things?
There's something, using data on the cellular handset.
Calling your attention now, sir, to the next entry that you were able to determine from the records provided by AT&T. Is there another data hit, so to speak, at a later time in that?
Correct. At 125, we're seeing it basically on the exact same tower. However, at this point, the azimuth is 100, recorded. They record the azimuth, again, it's a course of business as 150 degrees.
And can you show or draw on the screen how the azimuth changed?
Okay, so before it was more, again, due west, like that, 60 degrees. Now, with 180 degrees being due south, 150 would be right around here, and we're talking about 60 degrees on either side. So basically, 150 be around, about 110, somewhere out like that way, more that way.
Calling attention now to 2:25 a.m. Is there another data hit at that point?
There is, and again, it's the same tower, it's the same data tower, same tower as we've seen before. Latitude and longitude on it is, plotted out here, and the tower number is 20011, and the LAC is 6981, and this time the azimuth is 20 degrees.
Which is what, sir?
20 degrees would be more, with 0 being straight up, 20 degrees would be more up that way, and again, we're talking 60 degrees, so from there 80 degrees, 90 is due west, so 80 degrees that way and that way. And again, depending on the network, it would be, the strength would determine how far out it would go.
So this tower that we see here, we can go to the next slide. Can you describe where this tower is located in relation to Cure and whether or not it's the closest tower to Club Cure?
It is. In this map here, now the Mass Pike obviously would be south, okay? So it's, we're kind of looking from south to north, but the tower would be right here, plotted right on the roof over here, and the Cure, which I believe is at 246 Tremont, is right down there.
And from your review of the AT&T cell tower records, that's the closest tower to Cure, is that correct?
That's correct.
And just going back to the prior slides, does it appear that this phone, this handset, is hitting off of that same tower basically from 12:25 a.m. until 2:25 a.m.?
Yes, the phone's in the general area of that tower sometime, between that period of time, correct.
And other than the general area of the tower, sir, is there any way to more closely hone the location of the handset, the phone?
Well, as a course of business, no, there is not.
I'm showing you your next slide. Is that just a more drawn out viewing of where Club Cure is located in relation to that tower?
Correct. Again, with the Mass Pike being over here, and that's just exactly, it's the same, it's basically the same thing. It's on a Google Earth slide. It just shows it in a different perspective.
Calling your attention now, sir, to the next entry of data on that cell phone, 562-481-8106. Can you describe what we see here on the screen?
Okay, so at 2:37 a.m. there's a voice call made, and it's from this number. We've been through 562-481-8106. It's making a call to 860-502-2593. The elapsed time of the call is 17 seconds. The DIR after obviously means that it was calling another mobile and the call was complete. And
So DIR means the call is completed?
generally, yes, when you're reading the records, it does.
Okay.
Okay, and the call started, initial cell, when it started was on, excuse me, I made a bad mark there, but 22247, and on that LAC of 6980, latitude and longitude. So it started on and the azimuth on that was 30 degrees, and the call terminated 17 seconds later on 21797, same LAC, latitude and longitude was listed out, and the azimuth on that would be 250 degrees.
And is that a situation, as you previously described, where the start of the call hits one tower and the end of the call hits another?
That's,
Sustained.
Describe what this means as far as one tower for the start of the call and one tower at the end of the call.
again, if you're, if you're talking on a phone, what the cell carrier will do is they will record the originating cell tower and the terminating cell tower, where the phone started and where it ended. Even though your phone might pass on different towers on the way, that's not recorded as a course of business. would just be back at, in this case, AT&T Wireless, when they're keeping their records. They obviously don't have the ability to keep all that information, but they do keep a record of cell tower where your phone call started, cell tower terminated on, and the azimuth if available.
And the phone number being called here, sir, is that the same phone number that was previously called?
Correct.
860-502-2593?
That's correct.
And you're aware of whose phone number that is?
That's Cheyenne Jenkins.
What do we see here on the map, sir? Is that the plotting of the first tower?
That's correct. That is the first tower right here. Tower is 22247.
And just by way of reference, what is right here?
That's the Massachusetts Turnpike.
And what, if any, significance does the azimuth have to this?
Well, it just shows that obviously 30 degrees, and we went over this before, but 30 degrees would be, more like that. It just shows the phone being, up in that sector.
The second tower hit, sir, is that what we have depicted on the screen here?
That's correct.
Where is that located?
That is Tower 21797, and that's right over by the Prudential, just off the Massachusetts Turnpike.
And what do we see on the screen here, a more wide out shot of the map?
Well, we see the two towers they're approximately, somewhere between 0.4 and half a mile apart, and we see them both plotted out here. We don't have the azimuths drawn out, but the azimuth on the second tower would be 250 degrees, which would show it more over on this side over here, over that way. I mean, 250 being right here, show it more going that way, and again 30 on that way. So and that's the Massachusetts Turnpike going, straight through.
And based upon the starting location tower and the ending location tower, do you have an opinion as to whether or not this is consistent with anything?
Yeah, well, the phone was obviously moving because it started on this side of this tower and ended on that side of this tower, and it was only 17 seconds.
And how far did it go in 17 seconds, if you can approximate?
Around between 4/10 and 5/10 of a mile.
Mr. Hagan, I think we'll break 6 now. Lunch will resume.